How did I go from trusting my son with everything to cutting him out of my life in a single afternoon? Standing next to him at the dealership, I finally heard the truth everyone else already knew, and with one call, I put every lie in its place. People say I'm cold, but when someone betrays you this deeply, what choice do you really have? The morning sun streamed through the kitchen windows of our Westchester home as I sat across from Tyler Russo, my 24-year-old son, watching him scroll through his phone while his eggs grew cold. At 58, I'd built Russo Real Estate Group from nothing into one of the most respected firms in the tri-state area. I understood investments, risk assessment, and when to cut losses. What I couldn't understand was how the boy I'd raised had become such a stranger. Tyler, we need to discuss your performance metrics from last quarter, I said, setting down my coffee cup with deliberate precision. He didn't look up from his screen. Dad, it's Saturday morning. Can't we just eat breakfast? My wife Marina glided into the kitchen, her silver hair perfectly styled despite the early hour. At 55, she still moved with the grace that had caught my eye 30 years ago. She placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. Leonard, be patient with him. He's still recovering from that terrible incident. The incident. 3 weeks had passed since Tyler claimed he'd been attacked and robbed on his way to buy his first car. The story never sat right with me. Too many inconsistencies, too many convenient gaps in memory. But Marina's maternal instincts had kicked in, and she'd been protecting him like a wounded bird ever since. Speaking of which, Tyler said, finally looking up with those calculating eyes I'd been seeing more often lately, I was thinking maybe it's time to try again. You know, get that car I was supposed to buy. I found this amazing deal at Prestige Motors downtown. I studied his face. The same dealership where you were supposedly robbed? Near there. Look, Dad, I know you think I'm not ready for more responsibility at the company, but having reliable transportation would really help me get to client meetings, property showings. What client meetings? The question came out sharper than I intended. Tyler, you haven't closed a single deal in 8 months. Marina shot me a warning look. Leonard, he's trying. But I was tired of pretending. Am I enabling this? I asked, more to myself than to them. When I was 24, I was working 18-hour days, sleeping in my car between showings. I built this business so you could have opportunities I never had, but opportunities require effort. Tyler's jaw tightened. Not everyone can be Leonard F. Russo, real estate legend. Some of us are still figuring things out. Figuring things out with my money. I work for the company. You have a desk at the company. There's a difference. The tension in the kitchen was thick enough to cut. Marina stepped between us, her voice soft but firm. Both of you, stop this. Tyler, your father loves you and wants to see you succeed. Leonard, he's been through trauma. These things take time to heal. I looked at my son. Really looked at him. The supposed bruises from his attack had faded remarkably quickly. The split lip he'd claimed had barely been visible even the day after. And now here he was, asking for money to return to the exact area where he'd been brutally assaulted. Fine, I said finally. But this time, I'm coming with you. Tyler's face went pale. What? Dad, that's not necessary. It is to me. If my son is going to be carrying cash in an area where he was recently robbed, I want to be there to make sure he's safe. Leonard, that's sweet, Marina said, squeezing my hand. Tyler, wouldn't that be nice? Some father-son bonding time? I watched Tyler's Adam's apple bob as he swallowed hard. Sure, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. That sounds great. After breakfast, I retreated to my home office, a sanctuary lined with awards, photos from groundbreaking ceremonies, and the kind of mahogany furniture that spoke of old money and older principles. I pulled up Tyler's company credit card statements on my computer, something I should have done weeks ago. The numbers told a story Tyler hadn't. Expensive dinners at restaurants I knew he couldn't afford on his salary, charges at high-end clothing stores, a payment to something called Premier Auto Detailing just 2 days before his supposed robbery. And then came the detail that sent a sharp chill through me. A cash advance of $15,000, taken the very morning he claimed he was going car shopping. My phone buzzed. A text from my assistant. Mr. Russo, just a reminder about the Henderson property showing Monday. Also, Tyler hasn't responded to the client prep materials I sent last week. Of course he hadn't. I leaned back in my leather chair and stared at the family photo on my desk, Marina, Tyler, and me at his college graduation. He'd looked so promising then, so full of potential. Where had I gone wrong? My phone rang. Victor LeBlanc, my lawyer, and one of the few people I trusted completely. Leonard, how are you holding up? Honestly, I'm starting to think everyone was right about me being too soft on Tyler. Victor's chuckle was dry. It only took you 24 years to figure that out. What's the latest? I told him about the dealership plan, about the suspicious charges, about the growing feeling that my son was playing me for a fool. Leonard, you're one of the sharpest businessmen I know. You can spot a bad investment from 3 states away, but when it comes to Tyler... I know. I rubbed my temples. Victor, hypothetically speaking, if I needed to restructure Tyler's access to company resources, how quickly could that be done? There was a pause. Hypothetically, I could have papers drawn up by Monday morning, joint accounts, company access, even that car you're thinking about buying him. All of it could be transferred back to your sole control with a few signatures. Just hypothetically. Of course. But Leonard, if you're asking these questions, maybe it's time to stop thinking hypothetically. That afternoon, I found myself at Downtown Cafe, a place I'd been going to for business lunches since Tyler was in elementary school. I was early for a meeting with a potential investor when I heard a familiar laugh from the booth behind me. Seriously, life is so easy when your dad owns half the commercial real estate in the county. Tyler's voice carried that entitled tone I'd been hearing more often. I just tell him I need money for work expenses, and boom, cash in hand. Dude, that's insane, another voice replied. My parents make me account for every dollar. That's because your parents aren't Leonard Russo. My dad's so desperate for me to succeed, he'll believe anything. You should have seen him when I told him about getting robbed. He actually felt guilty, like it was somehow his fault for not protecting me better. My coffee cup froze halfway to my lips. Wait, you weren't actually robbed? A third voice, incredulous. Tyler laughed again. Come on, do I look like robbery victim material? Nah, I just needed a good excuse for why the car money went elsewhere. Where did it go? Let's just say Sabrina Klein has expensive taste, and I have a weakness for beautiful women with expensive taste. My hands were shaking as I pulled out my phone and opened my calendar app. There it was. Car dealership visit. Saturday with Tyler. 2 days away. I sat in that booth for another 20 minutes, listening to my son brag about manipulating me, about how easy his life was, about how he'd convinced his friend Tony Delgado to help him stage some fake injuries to make the robbery story more believable. When I finally stood to leave, my legs felt unsteady, not from age or weakness, but from the crushing weight of 24 years of unconditional love being revealed as 24 years of unconditional foolishness. I walked to my car and sat in the driver's seat for a long time, staring at nothing. Then I pulled out my phone and sent Victor a text. Not hypothetical anymore, start the paperwork. That evening, I sat in my home office staring at Tyler's employment file. Officially, he was a junior associate at Russo Real Estate Group, earning $45,000 a year plus bonuses. Unofficially, he was a drain on company resources who hadn't generated a single dollar of revenue in his 18 months of employment. The file painted a picture I'd been refusing to see. Chronic tardiness, missed client appointments, expense reports that read like a young man's wish list rather than legitimate business costs. His supervisor, Patricia Kowalski, had submitted 3 separate reports recommending Tyler be placed on performance improvement plans. I'd buried them all. I opened another file, one I kept locked in my desk drawer. Tyler's personal expenses that I'd been covering temporarily for the past 2 years. Car insurance, credit card payments, his apartment rent, even his gym membership. The total made my stomach turn. Over $80,000 in the past year alone. Marina appeared in the doorway, carrying 2 cups of tea. She'd changed into her silk pajamas and removed her makeup, looking vulnerable in the soft light from my desk lamp. You've been in here for hours, she said, settling into the chair across from my desk. Talk to me, Leonard. I closed the files and accepted the tea. Do you remember when Tyler was 16 and he crashed your car? Of course. He was devastated, apologized for weeks. Do you remember what he told us happened? Marina frowned, thinking. He said he swerved to avoid hitting a dog that ran into the road. There was no dog, Marina. I found out later from the police report that he'd been racing another kid from his school, but I never told you because I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe my son wouldn't lie to my face. Her teacup rattled against the saucer as she set it down. What are you saying? I'm saying I've been enabling him for 8 years, and it's turned him into someone I don't recognize. I told her about the cafe, about overhearing Tyler's conversation. I showed her the credit card statements, the expense reports, the supervisor complaints. With each piece of evidence, Marina's face grew paler. The robbery, she whispered. It never happened, did it? I don't think so. And tomorrow, when we go to that dealership, I suspect we're going to find out exactly what did happen to that $15,000. Marina was quiet for a long time, staring at the family photos lining my bookshelf. I defended him, she said finally. I told you to be patient, to give him time to heal from trauma that never existed. You're his mother. That's what mothers do. And you're his father. What are fathers supposed to do when their sons become strangers? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed with a text from Tyler. Hey Dad, super excited about tomorrow. Found the perfect car. This is going to be a fresh start for both of us. Love you. I showed the message to Marina. She read it twice, then looked up at me with tears in her eyes. He has no idea that you know, does he? None. What are you going to do? I thought about the question that had been haunting me all day. I'm going to stop being an enabler and start being a father. That night, I couldn't sleep. I found myself wandering through the house, looking at the remnants of Tyler's childhood. His Little League trophies still lined the mantel in the living room. His high school graduation photo hung in the hallway, showing a young man with bright eyes and genuine smile. When had that boy disappeared? Or had I simply been too blind to see who he was becoming? At 3 a.m, I stood in Tyler's old bedroom, now converted to a guest room, but still containing some of his belongings. I opened his desk drawer and found something that made my heart sink. A stack of IOUs, handwritten notes promising to pay back money borrowed from friends. The amounts were staggering, $500 here, $2,000 there. My son wasn't just spending my money, he was borrowing from anyone who would lend to him. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found Tony Delgado's number. Tyler's friend since high school, a kid I'd always liked for his honesty and work ethic. If anyone would tell me the truth about what really happened 3 weeks ago, it would be Tony. The phone rang 4 times before a groggy voice answered. Mr. Russo, is everything okay? It's like 3 a.m. Tony, I'm sorry to wake you, but I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. There was a pause. This is about Tyler, isn't it? The robbery. You know something about it. Another pause, longer this time. Mr. Russo, I can't... Tony, I've known you since you were 14 years old. I've watched you work 3 jobs to put yourself through community college. You're not the kind of person who lies, even for a friend. He's going to ruin me. He's going to have far bigger problems than you to worry about. Please, Tony, I need to know what really happened. A long sigh. There was no robbery, Mr. Russo. Tyler asked me to rough him up a little, just enough to make it look believable. He said he needed a good excuse for why he couldn't buy a car, that he'd spent the money on something else and needed time to figure out how to fix it. What did he spend it on? A car, but not for himself, for his girlfriend, Sabrina, some fancy BMW convertible. He thought if he could impress her enough, she'd, marry him or something. But she broke up with him anyway, kept the car, and now he's stuck trying to explain where $15,000 went. I closed my eyes. And you agreed to help him lie to his family? Mr. Russo, I'm sorry. I know it was wrong, but Tyler said you'd cut him off if you found out the truth. He was desperate, and he's been my friend for so long. I understand, Tony. Thank you for telling me. Are you going to tell him that I told you? That depends on what happens tomorrow. I ended the call and sat on Tyler's old bed, surrounded by the remnants of who I'd believed my son was. The boy who'd built model airplanes with me on Sunday afternoons, the teenager who'd cried when our dog passed away, the young man who'd promised to make me proud when I offered him a job at my company. Where had I gone wrong? Had I given him too much, too easily? Had I shielded him from consequences for so long that he'd never learned to face them? Or was this simply who Tyler was, and I'd been too blinded by paternal love to see it? My phone buzzed with an email from Victor, sent with a timestamp of 3:47 a.m. Leonard, couldn't sleep either. Documents are ready whenever you need them. Joint account closures, company access revocation, everything. Just say the word. I stared at the email for a long time. Tomorrow, I would take my son to buy a car, knowing full well that he'd already bought one with my money and given it to a girlfriend who dumped him anyway. Tomorrow, I would stand next to him as he lied to my face one more time. And then I would decide whether Leonard F. Russo was the kind of man who enabled liars or the kind who held them accountable. The answer, I realized, would define not just Tyler's future, but my own. Saturday morning arrived gray and drizzly, matching my mood as I watched Tyler pace nervously around the kitchen. He'd been up early, showered, and dressed in his best business casual outfit, the one I'd bought him for client meetings he never attended. "You sure you want to come with me, Dad?" he asked for the 3rd time. "I mean, I appreciate it, but I don't want you to feel like you have to babysit me." Marina looked up from her newspaper. "Tyler, your father wants to spend time with you. When's the last time you two did something together? Good question. I couldn't remember the last time Tyler and I had shared an activity that didn't involve me writing him a check. It's fine, son. I want to be there. Besides, I might learn something about cars. You know how I am with anything that doesn't involve real estate. Tyler's laugh sounded forced. Right. Okay, well, we should probably head out soon. Carl Jensen, the manager, said he'd have everything ready for us by 10. Interesting. Tyler knew the manager's name. For someone who'd supposedly been robbed near this dealership, he seemed remarkably comfortable with the staff. The drive to Prestige Motors took 20 minutes through suburban streets lined with the kind of modest homes I'd been buying and selling for 3 decades. Tyler fidgeted with the radio, started conversations he couldn't finish, and checked his phone obsessively. Expecting a call? I asked. What? No, just, nervous about making such a big purchase. It's not your first car purchase, though, is it? Tyler went very still. What do you mean? Well, you've been researching cars for weeks. You must have some experience with dealerships by now. Oh, right. Yeah, I've done some looking around. We pulled into the Prestige Motors lot at exactly 10 o'clock. The showroom gleamed under fluorescent lights, filled with vehicles that cost more than most people made in a year. Tyler led me toward a silver sedan with practiced familiarity, greeting the receptionist by name, Mr. Russo. A middle-aged man in a crisp suit approached us with the kind of enthusiasm that comes with commission-based pay. Carl Jensen, we spoke on the phone, and you must be Tyler's father. I can see the family resemblance. I shook Carl's hand, studying his face. Pleasure to meet you, Carl. Tyler's told me so much about this place. Well, he's certainly been a memorable customer. We don't often see someone his age making such generous purchases. A cold realization settled over me. Purchases. Plural. Tyler's face had gone pale. Carl, maybe we should just focus on today's car. Of course. Though I have to ask, how did Sabrina like the BMW? She seemed absolutely thrilled when you surprised her with it last month. That was quite the romantic gesture. The showroom floor seemed to tilt beneath my feet. I looked at Tyler, whose mouth was opening and closing like a fish out of water. I'm sorry, I said slowly. Did you say Tyler bought a BMW for his girlfriend? Carl's smile faltered as he sensed the tension. Well, yes, the red convertible. Beautiful car, perfect for a young lady, though I hope she's been careful with it. Those models can be tricky in wet weather. Tyler was backing away from us, his face now completely white. Dad, I can explain. Can you? My voice came out calmer than I felt. Because 3 weeks ago, you told me you were robbed on the way to buy your first car. You had bruises. You were traumatized. Your mother and I held you while you cried about how scared you were. Mr. Russo, Carl said quietly, I think there might be some confusion here. Tyler purchased that BMW on the 15th of last month. Paid in full, cash. Said it was a surprise for his girlfriend's birthday. The 15th. The exact day Tyler claimed to have been robbed. Tyler was now near the showroom entrance, looking like a cornered animal. Dad, please, let me explain. It's not what it looks like. What does it look like, Tyler? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like my son took $15,000 of my money, bought a car for his girlfriend, then staged a fake robbery to cover his tracks. It appears he persuaded a friend to help him stage harm so he could deceive his family into believing he'd been the target of a serious incident. It looks like he's been playing me for a fool while laughing about it to his friends. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. I pulled out my phone. Excuse me for just a moment. I walked to the far corner of the showroom and dialed Victor's number. He answered on the first ring. Victor, it's time. Shut it all down. Everything. Everything. Joint accounts, company access, credit cards, all of it. And Victor, I want that BMW back. If it's titled in Tyler's name, it was purchased with stolen money. Consider it done. Leonard, are you okay? I looked back across the showroom. Tyler was gone. The entrance doors were still swinging from his exit. I will be. When I returned to Carl, he was standing awkwardly by the sedan, clearly wishing he was anywhere else. Mr. Jensen, I apologize for the scene. There won't be any car purchase today. I gathered that. Mr. Russo, for what it's worth, I'm sorry. I had no idea there was family drama involved. You couldn't have known. Tyler can be very convincing when he wants to be. I walked outside to find the parking lot empty except for my car. Tyler had vanished, probably calling an Uber or texting friends for a ride. My phone was already buzzing with messages from him. Dad, please call me. I can explain everything. You don't understand what really happened. I never meant to hurt you. Please don't do anything rash. I deleted them without responding and drove home in silence. Marina was waiting in the living room when I walked through the front door. One look at my face told her everything she needed to know. It was true, wasn't it? Everything you suspected. I sat down heavily in my leather recliner and told her about the dealership, about Carl's casual mention of the BMW, about Tyler's face when the truth came out. He ran, I finished. Didn't even try to explain himself, just ran. Marina was crying silently, tears streaming down her cheeks. I defended him, Leonard. I told you to be patient with him, to give him time to heal from trauma that never existed. I enabled this just as much as you did. We both wanted to believe the best of our son. But he's not our son anymore, is he? I don't know who he's become, but the Tyler I raised wouldn't have done this. My phone rang. Victor. It's done, he said without preamble. All accounts frozen, company access revoked, credit cards canceled. I've also contacted the DMV about the BMW. If it was purchased with funds from your joint account, we can make a case for recovery. How long will that take? With the right pressure, maybe a week. Leonard, there's something else. I did some digging into Tyler's finances. He's got debts you don't know about. Credit cards in his own name, personal loans, money borrowed from friends. We're talking about another $30,000 in debt, minimum. I closed my eyes. How did I not see this? Because you're a good father who wanted to trust his son. But Leonard, this is bigger than just lying about a car. Tyler's been living a fantasy life funded by other people's money. If you don't cut him off now, it'll only get worse. After Victor hung up, I sat in the quiet of my living room, listening to the grandfather clock tick in the corner. Marina had gone upstairs, probably to cry in private. My phone continued to buzz with messages from Tyler, each one more desperate than the last. I thought about the boy who used to help me in my workshop, handing me tools and asking endless questions about how things worked. I thought about the teenager who'd been so proud when I taught him to drive, practicing for hours in empty parking lots until he could parallel park perfectly. I thought about the young man who'd hugged me at his college graduation and promised to make me proud. That person was gone. Maybe he'd never really existed. Maybe I'd been so busy building a business empire that I'd failed to notice my son building an empire of lies. My phone rang again. This time it was a number I didn't recognize. Mr. Russo? This is Sabrina Klein, Tyler's ex-girlfriend. I think we need to talk. I'll meet you at the Starbucks on Maple Street, Sabrina Klein said. And Mr. Russo? You should know that Tyler's been calling me nonstop since this morning. I think he's desperate. An hour later, I sat across from a young woman who looked nothing like the gold digger I'd imagined. Sabrina was professionally dressed, articulate, and carried herself with the confidence of someone much older than 22. She ordered a simple coffee and looked me directly in the eye when she spoke. I want you to know that I never asked Tyler to buy me a car, she began. In fact, I told him it was too much, that he couldn't afford it. But he insisted it was no big deal, that his family had plenty of money. When did you find out the truth? About a week after he gave it to me. He showed up at my apartment crying, saying he'd made a terrible mistake and needed the car back. That's when he told me he'd used money that was supposed to be for his own car. I sipped my coffee, studying her face. But you didn't give it back. Sabrina's cheeks reddened. I should have. I know that now. But Tyler said he had a plan to fix everything, that he just needed some time. He begged me not to say anything to anyone, and honestly, I was angry. He'd put me in an impossible position. Either I was the girlfriend who took a car back, or I was the girlfriend who kept a car bought with stolen money. So you broke up with him. I broke up with him because he lied to me about everything. His job, his finances, his family situation. I found out from his friend Tony that Tyler had been borrowing money from everyone he knew, telling each person a different story about why he needed it. My phone buzzed with another text from Tyler. Sabrina glanced at it. He's been texting me too, saying his dad found out about the car and cut him off, asking if he can stay at my place. She shook her head. I told him no. I'm seeing someone else now, and besides, I can't trust Tyler anymore. What about the car? I was wondering when you'd ask about that. Sabrina reached into her purse and pulled out a set of keys. I've been planning to return it anyway. It's been sitting in my apartment complex parking garage for 2 weeks. I was afraid to drive it, afraid someone would see me and think I was the kind of person who accepts stolen gifts. I stared at the keys. You're giving it back? Mr. Russo, I made a mistake by keeping it as long as I did. I was angry and hurt, and I made a selfish decision. But I'm not a thief, and I don't want to be part of Tyler's lies anymore. We drove to her apartment complex in separate cars. The BMW sat in the garage exactly as she'd described, a red convertible that probably cost more than most people's annual salary. Sabrina handed me the title and registration. "There's a small scratch on the passenger door," she said. "I was going to have it fixed, but I wasn't sure if I should spend money on a car that wasn't really mine." I examined the scratch. Minor damage, easily repaired. "Sabrina, can I ask you something? What do you think happened to Tyler? When did he become someone who could lie so easily?" She considered the question carefully. "I think Tyler never learned that actions have consequences. Every time he made a mistake, someone fixed it for him. His parents, his friends, his teachers. He started to believe that there would always be someone to clean up his messes. And now? Now he's 24 years old, and he's run out of people willing to clean up after him. That evening, I sat in my home office with Victor, reviewing the documents that would officially sever Tyler's access to my financial resources. The papers were thorough. Joint accounts closed, company access revoked, credit cards canceled, even his health insurance transferred back to my personal policy. "This is comprehensive," Victor said. "But Leonard, you need to understand that Tyler will probably try to contest some of this. He might claim he's owed severance from the company, or that the joint accounts were gifts. Let him try. I have documentation of every penny that went into those accounts, and I have witnesses to his confession about the fake robbery. Speaking of which, I've been in touch with the police. They want to know if you plan to press charges for fraud." I leaned back in my chair. Fraud charges against my own son. The money he took was obtained under false pretenses. Legally, that's fraud. And if he convinced his friend to help him stage injuries, that could be conspiracy. What would happen to him? First offense, probably probation and restitution, but it would be on his record permanently. I thought about Tyler, probably sitting in some cheap motel room, frantically calling everyone he knew for help. Part of me, the father part, wanted to rescue him one more time. But the businessman in me knew that some debts could only be paid through consequences. "I need some time to think about the criminal charges," I said finally, "but everything else proceeds as planned." After Victor left, Marina joined me in the office. She'd been quiet all day, processing the reality of who our son had become. "I keep thinking about when he was little," she said. "Remember how he used to have nightmares, and we'd take turns sitting with him until he fell back asleep?" "I remember. I wonder if we're having nightmares now, and we're waiting for someone to come sit with us until we feel safe again." My phone rang. Tyler's number. I let it go to voicemail, then listened to the message. "Dad, please call me back. I know you're angry, and you have every right to be, but I need to explain what really happened. I'm at the Riverside Motel on Route 9. I don't have anywhere else to go." "Mom, if you're listening to this, I'm sorry. I never meant for any of this to happen. I just wanted Sabrina to see that I could take care of her. I wanted to be the kind of man who could buy his girlfriend nice things. Please don't give up on me." Marina was crying again. "He sounds so lost, Leonard." "He is lost. The question is whether we help him find his way back or whether we let him figure it out on his own." "What do you think we should do?" I looked at the family photo on my desk, then at the stack of legal documents that would cut Tyler out of our financial lives. "I think we should let him learn what the rest of the world already knows, that actions have consequences, and love doesn't mean enabling someone's worst impulses. Even if it breaks our hearts, especially then." That night, I couldn't sleep. I found myself walking through the house again, but this time I was looking at it through different eyes. The expensive furniture Tyler had never appreciated, the art collection he'd never shown interest in, the home gym he'd used twice, everything I'd worked for, everything I'd built, had been meant to provide opportunities for my family. Instead, it had provided Tyler with a safety net so comfortable he'd never learned to walk on his own. At 3 a.m, I made a decision. I pulled out my phone and sent a text to Tyler. "Your belongings will be packed and left at the front door tomorrow. You have 48 hours to collect them. After that, they go to charity. Your mother and I love you, but we will not enable your lies anymore. When you're ready to tell the truth about everything, the money, the debts, the fake robbery, and when you're ready to face the consequences of your actions, we can talk about rebuilding our relationship. Until then, you are not welcome in this house." I turned off my phone without waiting for a response. Sunday morning brought an unusual quiet to our house. No Tyler sleeping until noon, no arguments about responsibility, no requests for money disguised as conversations about the future. Marina and I sat at the breakfast table, eating in a silence that felt both peaceful and heartbreaking. "I packed his things last night," Marina said finally. 3 boxes and 2 suitcases. It's remarkable how little he actually owned, considering how much money he spent. Most of what he bought was for other people. The car, expensive dinners, gifts to impress friends. Tyler never learned the difference between generosity and desperation. My phone, which I'd turned back on an hour ago, showed 17 missed calls from Tyler and 3 voicemails I hadn't listened to yet. There were also 2 calls from numbers I didn't recognize, probably friends of Tyler's, trying to advocate on his behalf. Victor called this morning, I said. The BMW has been transferred back to my name, and the bank has confirmed that all joint accounts are closed. Tyler's company access was revoked yesterday evening. What about his debts? The money he owes other people? That's his problem now. I'm not covering debts I didn't know existed. Marina nodded, but I could see the struggle in her eyes. 24 years of maternal instinct don't disappear overnight, even when your child has proven himself unworthy of trust. Leonard, what if he really has nowhere to go? Then he'll figure something out, the same way millions of other young adults figure things out when they don't have wealthy parents to fall back on. But what if... Marina. I reached across the table and took her hand. We have to stop asking, what if? Tyler made his choices. Now he gets to live with them. At noon, I carried Tyler's belongings to the front porch. 3 boxes of clothes, books, and personal items. 2 suitcases filled with more clothes than any reasonable person needed. As I set the last box down, a car pulled into our driveway. Tyler climbed out of a beat-up Honda that probably belonged to one of his friends. He looked terrible, unshaven, wearing the same clothes from yesterday, eyes red from either crying or lack of sleep. Maybe both. Dad, he said, approaching the porch cautiously. Can we talk? We can talk right here. I mean inside, as a family. Tyler, you stopped being part of this family the moment you decided to lie to us about being robbed. You stopped being part of this family when you stole $15,000 and gave it to a girlfriend who dumped you anyway. You stopped being part of this family when you convinced your friend to help you fake injuries so you could manipulate our emotions. Tyler's face crumpled. I know I made mistakes. Mistakes? I stepped closer to him. Tyler, a mistake is forgetting to return a phone call or being late for dinner. What you did was commit fraud. What you did was look your mother and me in the eye and lie about being the target of a serious incident. What you did was take advantage of our love for you and use it as leverage against our better judgment. I can pay you back. With what money? Victor tells me you owe at least $30,000 to various creditors, none of whom you told the truth about why you needed the money. Tyler's shoulders sagged. I can get a job. You had a job. You had a job at one of the most successful real estate companies in the state, working for a boss who wanted nothing more than to see you succeed, and you treated it like a joke. I'll work somewhere else then. I'll prove to you that I can change. I studied my son's face, looking for any sign of genuine remorse, any indication that he understood the magnitude of what he'd done. What I saw instead was the same entitled expectation that had characterized our relationship for years, the assumption that if he said the right words, if he appeared sufficiently contrite, I would rescue him again. Tyler, do you know why I'm really angry? Because I lied to you. I'm angry because you're still lying to me. Right now, standing on this porch, you're lying. You're lying because you think this is about money. You think if you promise to pay me back, if you get a job and make some gesture toward responsibility, everything will go back to the way it was. But this isn't about money, Tyler. This is about character. I gestured toward his belongings. Everything you own is in those boxes, and it all fits on one porch. Do you know why? Because you've never actually owned anything in your life. Everything was given to you, paid for by me, provided without effort or appreciation. You don't know the value of money because you've never had to earn it. You don't know the weight of responsibility because you've never had to carry it. So teach me, Tyler said, and for a moment, he sounded like the little boy who used to ask me to explain how things worked. Give me another chance to learn. I've been trying to teach you for 24 years. The lesson never took because there were never any real consequences for not learning it. Marina appeared in the doorway behind me. Tyler's face lit up with hope. Mom, please, talk to him. You know I'm not a bad person. I just made some bad choices. Marina looked at her son for a long moment, and I could see the war happening in her heart. Finally, she spoke. Tyler, I love you. I will always love you. But your father is right. We've been enabling you to make bad choices by protecting you from the consequences. That stops now. Mom, when you were 16 and you crashed my car, we believed your story about the dog in the road because we wanted to believe it. When you were 18 and you got caught cheating on your SATs, we hired a lawyer to get the charges dropped instead of letting you face the consequences. When you were 20 and you dropped out of college for the 3rd time, we welcomed you home and gave you a job you hadn't earned. Marina's voice was steady, but tears were streaming down her face. We thought we were being loving parents. We thought we were giving you opportunities. but what we were really doing was teaching you that lies work, that manipulation works, that there would always be someone to clean up your messes. Tyler looked back and forth between us, and I saw the moment when he realized that his usual tactics weren't going to work this time. "So, what am I supposed to do?" he asked, and for the first time his voice carried a note of genuine fear. "You're supposed to figure it out," I said. The same way every other adult figures it out when they don't have parents willing to subsidize their irresponsibility. Tyler loaded his belongings into the Honda without another word. As he prepared to drive away, he rolled down the window. "This isn't over," he said, but there was no anger in his voice, just a hollow kind of defeat. "You're right," I replied. "It's not over, but it also won't continue the way it has been. When you're ready to have an honest conversation about who you've become and who you want to be, call me. Until then, you're on your own." After Tyler drove away, Marina and I stood on the porch for a long time, not speaking. The house behind us felt different, emptier, but also cleaner somehow, like we'd finally removed something that had been poisoning the air. "Did we just destroy our relationship with our son?" Marina asked. "I don't know, but I know we just stopped destroying ourselves trying to save someone who didn't want to be saved." That evening, Victor called with an update. "The BMW has been repaired and is ready for pickup whenever you want it. Also, I've been contacted by 3 of Tyler's creditors. Apparently, he's been using your name as a reference for loans and credit applications." "What kind of loans?" "Personal loans, mostly. Small amounts, but they add up. He's been telling people that his father owns Russo Real Estate Group and would guarantee any debts if necessary." I closed my eyes. "How much total?" "Close to 40,000, from what I can determine. And Leonard, there's something else. I got a call from the police. They want to interview Tyler about the fake robbery. Apparently his friend Tony came forward and told them the whole story." "Why would Tony do that?" "Because Tyler called him yesterday, asking him to lie to you about what really happened. Tony decided he'd had enough of being part of Tyler's deceptions." I thought about Tony Delgado, a young man who'd worked 3 jobs to put himself through school, who'd made one mistake by helping a friend and was now trying to make it right. "Victor, I want to do something for Tony. Maybe offer him a job at the company, something entry-level where he can learn the business." "That's very generous, Leonard. What about Tyler? What about him?" "The police are going to charge him with filing a false report at minimum. If they can prove conspiracy with Tony, it could be more serious." I was quiet for a moment, thinking about the boy who used to build model airplanes with me, who used to ask endless questions about how things worked. That boy was gone, replaced by a young man who thought consequences were for other people. "Let the police do their job," I said finally. "Tyler needs to learn that actions have consequences, even when, especially when, those actions involve lying to the people who love him most." After I hung up, I sat in my office looking at the family photo on my desk. Tomorrow, I would have to decide whether to keep it there or put it away. Tonight, I would grieve for the son I thought I had and try to make peace with the man he'd actually become. 3 days later, I was reviewing quarterly reports in my office when Patricia Kowalski knocked on my door. "Mr. Russo? Tyler is here. He's asking to see you." I looked up from the spreadsheets. "Did you tell him he's no longer an employee here?" "I did. He said it was personal, not business." Through my office window, I could see Tyler in the reception area, talking animatedly to anyone who would listen. He was dressed in a suit I'd bought him for client meetings, trying to project an image of professional competence that had never matched his actual performance. "Send him in." Tyler entered my office with the kind of false confidence I'd seen him use with difficult clients, the ones who eventually went to our competitors because they could sense his insincerity. "Dad, I'm glad you agreed to see me. I've been doing a lot of thinking over the past few days." I gestured to the chair across from my desk. "Have you?" "I realize I made some serious mistakes, and I want to make things right. I've talked to a lawyer about the situation with the BMW, and I think we can work out a payment plan that—" "Tyler, stop." "What?" Stop performing. Stop trying to manage this conversation like it's a business negotiation. Stop pretending that you've had some kind of revelation that's going to make everything go back to the way it was." Tyler's confident mask slipped slightly. "I'm not performing. I'm trying to fix what I broke." "What you broke can't be fixed with a payment plan or a lawyer or another performance of contrition. What you broke was trust, and trust isn't something you can negotiate your way back into." I leaned back in my chair and studied my son. "Tyler, in the 3 days since you left our house, how many people have you asked for money?" "That's not—" "How many?" Tyler's jaw tightened. "I've been trying to figure out my living situation." "That's not what I asked. How many people have you asked for money?" "A few. But Dad, I don't have anywhere to go. I'm staying in a motel that charges by the week, and I can barely afford. So you've learned nothing. What do you mean? I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my messages. I've received calls from 4 of your friends' parents in the past 3 days. Apparently you've been telling people that I've temporarily cut you off due to a misunderstanding, but that everything will be resolved soon. You've been using that story to borrow money from people who trust me. Tyler's face went pale. You never said what? That you're a liar? That you stole $15,000 and gave it to a girlfriend who dumped you? That you faked a robbery to cover your tracks? You're right. You never said those things. Instead, you've been spinning a new story, one where you're the victim of an unreasonable father who's temporarily upset about a minor disagreement. I stood up and walked to the window overlooking the parking lot. Tyler, do you see that BMW in the parking space marked reserved for L. Russo? Tyler followed my gaze. Yes. That's the car you bought for Sabrina Klein with my money. She returned it to me 3 days ago, along with a sincere apology for keeping it as long as she did. A 22-year-old girl showed more integrity in one conversation than my 24-year-old son has shown in his entire adult life. Dad, please. I'm not finished. I turned back to face him. That car is going to be sold, and the proceeds will go toward paying back the people you've borrowed money from using my name as collateral. Your friend Tony is going to be offered a job here, starting in our entry-level training program. He made a mistake by helping you, but he had the courage to come forward and tell the truth when it mattered. Tyler's composure was cracking. What about me? What about you? Don't I get a chance to make things right? I walked back to my desk and sat down. Tyler, you've had 24 years of chances. You've had chances I never had, opportunities I could never have imagined when I was your age, and you've wasted every single one of them because you believed that being my son meant you were entitled to success without effort, respect without earning it, and forgiveness without genuine repentance. I am repentant. No, you're desperate. There's a difference. I opened the folder containing Tyler's employment records and spread them across the desk. 18 months of employment, 0 closed deals, 47 missed client appointments, expense reports totaling more than your salary, 3 supervisor recommendations for performance improvement plans that I ignored because I wanted to believe you'd figure it out eventually. Tyler stared at the papers. I was learning. You were coasting. You were taking a salary you hadn't earned, benefits you didn't deserve, and respect you hadn't worked for. And when that wasn't enough, you started stealing. It wasn't stealing. What would you call taking $15,000 under false pretenses? Tyler was quiet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was small. I was trying to impress Sabrina. I thought if I could show her that I was successful, that I could take care of her. You thought you could buy her love with my money. I thought I could prove I was worth something. And what did you prove instead? Tyler's shoulders sagged. That I'm not. For the first time in our conversation, I heard something that might have been genuine remorse, but I'd heard it before, and I'd learned not to trust it. Tyler, do you know what I was doing when I was 24? Building your business. I was working 16-hour days, sleeping in my car between appointments, eating 1 meal a day because I couldn't afford 2. I was learning that success isn't something you inherit or something you're entitled to. It's something you earn through effort, through failure, through getting up every time you fall down and trying again. I gestured around my office. Everything you see here, this company, this building, the life your mother and I have built, it exists because I was willing to fail. I was willing to be embarrassed, to be rejected, to make mistakes and learn from them. But I was never willing to lie about my failures or blame other people for my mistakes. I can learn to do that too. Maybe, but not here and not with my money. Tyler's face hardened. So that's it? You're just cutting me off completely? I'm giving you what I never had, the opportunity to find out who you are when no one is there to catch you when you fall. And if I can't make it on my own, then you'll fail, and maybe failure will teach you what success never could. Tyler stood up abruptly. You're really going to throw away 24 years over some money? Tyler, I'm not throwing anything away. You already did that when you decided that lying to your family was easier than telling the truth about your failures. Fine. Tyler's voice was cold now, the mask of contrition completely gone. But don't expect me to come crawling back when you realize you've made a mistake. I won't. Tyler walked to the door, then turned back. You know what, Dad? Maybe you're right. Maybe I am a failure. But at least I'm not someone so cold-hearted that he tears his own family apart over money. You're right about one thing, I said calmly. This isn't about money. It never was. This is about character, and character is something that can't be bought or inherited. It has to be earned. Tyler left without another word. I sat in my office for a long time after he was gone, staring at the family photo on my desk. Finally, I opened my desk drawer and put the photo away. Someday, maybe, there would be a new photo, one that included a son who had learned the difference between entitlement and achievement, between love and enabling. But that day wasn't today. My phone rang. Marina. How did it go? He's angry. He thinks I'm being unreasonable. Are you? I thought about the question. I don't know. But I know that I'm tired of being the kind of father who enables his son's worst impulses in the name of love. What happens now? Now Tyler learns what the rest of the world already knows, that actions have consequences, and love doesn't mean protecting people from the results of their choices. And us? We learn to live with the fact that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for someone is refuse to save them from themselves. That evening, I sat in my home office reviewing the documents Victor had prepared. The BMW would be sold within the week. Tyler's debts to his friends' families would be paid in full, along with a letter explaining that this was a one-time settlement and that any future loans to Tyler would not be guaranteed by me. The police investigation into the fake robbery would proceed without interference from me. For the first time in years, my financial obligations were clear and manageable. For the first time in years, I knew exactly where my money was going and why. For the first time in years, I felt like Leonard Russo again. Not Tyler's enabler, not Marina's co-conspirator in denial, but a man who had built something meaningful through effort and integrity. It was a lonely feeling, but it was also clean. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Mr. Russo, this is Tony Delgado. I heard you might have a position available at your company. I'd like to learn more if you have time to talk. I smiled and typed back, come in Monday morning at 9 a.m. Ask for Patricia Kowalski. She'll show you what real work looks like. Some stories end with reconciliation and forgiveness. Others end with consequences and accountability. As I turned off the lights in my office and headed upstairs to join Marina, I realized that sometimes the most hopeful ending is the one where people finally learn the difference between the two. The call came on a Tuesday morning in March. I was reviewing contracts for a new commercial development when Patricia knocked on my door. Mr. Russo? There's a Tyler Russo on line 2. He says he's your son. I hadn't heard from Tyler since that day in my office 6 months ago. According to mutual acquaintances, he'd eventually found work at a car rental agency, moved into a shared apartment with 3 roommates, and was slowly paying back his debts. The police investigation had resulted in probation and community service, consequences that he'd faced without calling me for help. Put him through. Dad? Tyler's voice was different, quieter, less certain. I hope it's okay that I called. It's okay. I wanted you to know that I paid back the Hendersons, the last of the money I borrowed from your friends' families. It took 6 months, but it's done. I'm glad to hear that. There was a long pause. Dad, I also wanted to tell you that you were right. About everything. I was entitled, I was dishonest, and I was using your love for me as a weapon against your better judgment. I leaned back in my chair. What changed your mind? Living in the real world, working for a boss who didn't care that my last name was Russo, splitting rent 4 ways and eating ramen noodles because that's what I could afford. Learning what it feels like when people don't trust you because you've given them reasons not to. And realizing that I'd rather be poor and honest than comfortable and fake. I was quiet for a moment, processing the change in his voice, the absence of manipulation or performance. Tyler, are you calling because you want something or because you have something to say? I have something to say. I'm sorry. Not sorry because I got caught. Not sorry because there were consequences, but sorry because I hurt people who loved me. Sorry because I wasted opportunities other people would have done anything for. Sorry because I became someone I don't want to be. What do you want to be? I want to be someone who earns what he has, someone who tells the truth even when it's uncomfortable, someone who doesn't need his father's money or his mother's protection to feel like he's worth something. I looked out my office window at the BMW that had been Tyler's gift to Sabrina Klein. I'd decided not to sell it after all. Instead, it sat in my reserved parking space as a daily reminder of the cost of enabling and the value of accountability. Tyler, are you asking for another chance? No, I'm telling you that I'm working on becoming the kind of person who might deserve one someday. But I'm not there yet, and I don't know when I will be. What does that mean? It means I'm not asking you to trust me or forgive me or welcome me back into the family. It means I'm asking you to know that I understand why you did what you did, and that I'm grateful for it, even though it was the hardest thing that ever happened to me. After we hung up, I sat in my office for a long time, thinking about the difference between the Tyler who had left my office 6 months ago and the one who had just called. The voice was the same, but everything else was different. Marina appeared in my doorway. Was that Tyler? Yes. How did he sound? Like someone I might want to get to know someday. But not today? Not today? That evening, I put the family photo back on my desk. Not because everything was fixed, not because Tyler had earned his way back into our lives, but because hope is different from enabling, and love is different from rescue. Some stories end with dramatic reconciliations and tearful reunions. Others end with the quiet recognition that real change takes time, that trust must be rebuilt slowly, and that the most profound love sometimes looks like walking away. As I turned off the lights in my office, I realized that I was finally proud of my son. Not for what he had accomplished, but for what he was willing to lose in order to find out who he really was. The BMW would stay in my parking space a while longer, a reminder that consequences and accountability aren't the opposite of love. Sometimes they're the truest expression of it. And someday, when Tyler had truly learned the difference between entitlement and achievement, between comfort and character, maybe we would have a conversation about what comes next. But that conversation would have to be earned, not given, just like everything else worth having in this world.